Hi there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, back with a old one, really. A resurrection of the formerly great Platoon Boom series. I'm going to be running these a little bit more because they fit very neatly into a category I like to call me playing a game with a mate and having fun. Today, we're running around with Snake, and as promised, I've stopped running Object 140 videos. I decided to have a go in the T62A, just because. This is prior to patch 3.1, and when that goes up, I'm going to have a lot of stuff coming out that's going to be light tank videos. I'm going to do fresh looks at the E50M, the M48A1, and a little bit of a squiz at the FV4202. Happy days. Both these games are on Fort to Spare, and they're actually going to highlight a couple of really interesting features of the current gameplay. One of them is that while armor and everything is fantastic, speed and damage are the kings of the battlefield. Now you're going to see the other team has a platoon of mouses in the houses. I'm with SnakeEyes, he's in the Object 140, I'm in the 62A. What these two tanks have in common is an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage per minute, and when it's able to be put to use, it's just freakishly devastating to the enemy team. And you're going to see us absolutely tear a few tanks apart. Now, the mouse has a fantastic bit of armor going on. And you can see here, it's got a whole bit of yellowy, reddy, grey kind of things going on. However, it also has what's called a drive wheel. Now, drive wheels are very, very weak. And if you know enough about tanks in this game, you'll know that when you can't pen something, go for a drive wheel, because the area behind a drive wheel is generally very, very soft. And not only is it soft, it's very easy to pen through a drive wheel using APCR and then actually get through that soft area underneath and do damage, even to the biggest, most heavily armored tanks. And the mouse is certainly no exception there. If you can get it at the right angle, you'll be able to go through the drive wheel while being unable to pen other parts of the mouse. Which is quite funny because you can see how red the sides of it are there. But it's so big and so immobile, and this tank is so small and quick. And there's that drive wheel I was talking about. And you can see that poor mouse is stuck. He doesn't have the DPM or to scare me off, and I can just sit here putting shots in to my heart's content. And there's another one, straight through the drive wheel. And it's well worth taking the hits here because we get to get rid of one of the biggest and most deadly enemies on the field. Speaking of big and deadly enemies, I want you to see what two Russian mediums can do to a mouse. At 4 minutes 27 seconds, I take my first shot. This guy's going to be dead in about 13 seconds. Biggest heavy in the game, the most hit points in the game. Absolutely no chance. Look at him getting chewed up alive. Yeah, just a crazy pairing, the old T62A and the Object 140. And there's a lot of people don't like the fact that the Russian mediums are so strong, and it's obvious when you play them enough that these two are very, very overpowered tanks. And it's a commonality in the line, and it's just how it is. It's going to be interesting with the patch to see how the E50M and the M48A1 pattern. The M48 has long been overdue a buff to its turret armor. The fact it had a weak spot on top of what was already a big weak spot in the turret was just absolutely ridiculous. And you can see there, I made all my money in that game on the mouse. Didn't find much heat. In fact, I think we've got another game coming up where I don't know if I fire any heat at all, but again, it's on Fort to Spare. So you've got tanks like the 62 and the 140 that can cruise around there. They're low. The 140 has the best camo in its tier. The 62A is not far behind. They're super quick. They're very, very mobile. The 62A's traverse is off the charts. They've got incredibly high rate of fire, decent alpha guns that can just blurt out damage, perma-track tanks. They're quite accurate. They're very, very good on the move. They've got trollish armor profiles, particularly their turrets, but their upper glacis is also, very, very strong and can bounce shots when angled, as you saw there, and you'll probably see in the next game as well. Now you see the other team though, look at this, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Russian meds on their team, 1, 2, 3, 4 on our team. So that's 9 of 14 tanks in a Tier X, Tier 9 match are Russian mediums. And it's not It's not a surprise. And if you want to run at Tier X and win consistently, the best way to do it is to run a Russian med. It's not just because the tanks are so strong. The other tanks have things that are excellent and better than the Russian mediums by, a fair mark. The Leopard 1's gun, for instance, the E50M's gun. But all these things require space. They require big open areas, and they require things that Blitz doesn't have. Notably, a lack of weak spot indicators would be very, very helpful, and maps that are large enough to contain all kinds of different tanks. In small maps where you are constantly in brawls and there is constant action and you can see the enemy all the time and you can flank very, very quickly. I think that's something people don't realise. On the PC version, you have these huge big maps. So if you want to flank, you've got to make an effort to flank. You've got to really get out there and push and run a route on your own. It's unlikely you're not going to be spotted, etc. But in Blitz, you can see we are under a minute into the game and we're already behind the whole enemy team. And as a platoon, and we've got 6,000, we've got nearly 7,000 DPM right here in 2 tanks. So this is why I think that the Russian mediums will eventually get the nerf. And I love playing them, and why wouldn't you love playing them? But they probably will. Look at the way SnakeEyes and I, and this is the key. If you're in a platoon with a mate that you've been playing with for a long time and you understand the way they play, you can see we're constantly moving to opposite flanks of our targets. Double teaming. I'm going to go past this guy, and he's going to have a choice between either getting smashed by me or smashed by SnakeEyes. And we're both putting DPM in at the same time. It's a blatant... I mean, you can do this with any tank, but it's just best done with T62As and 140s or T54s because they have the best DPM and they have the best armor and they have the best camo and they've got fantastic speed and all those kinds of things. Even so, I mean, they had 5 Russian mediums and we had 4, so it wasn't like they were going to have it all on their own. And there you go, we get pushed right down very, very quickly. Got to clear out that other 62A. And now on to the E75. I'm going to leave the E75 alone because they've got a cap, and SnakeEyes is in Discord with me and he's saying, mate, these other 2 guys you've got on the team are probably not going to be able to do this on their own. You should move around, leave the E75 alone and get stuck in. And so that's what I do because you might have seen the recent T54 game I had. I can take care of an E75 as a one-shot in a Russian medium, no problems at all, because they're so low to the ground. You can side hug an E75 and actually not get hit at all if you're clever about it. So your far, far more important targets are the T54s and the T62As of this world. So we knock them off, and then we'll go back and deal with the E75. And it's worked out a treat because the E75 has been trying to get his way to a shot round there, and he's been looking for shots into the target area, and we've just come out here, and he's finally come out, but it's too late for him. He gets one into us there, and we're beside him, and he is done and dusted. That's World of Russian Mediums, boys and girls, and that's why they're so strong, and that's why they're played so often by so many players that actually know how to play the game. Because you can actually put your thought onto the battlefield so quickly and so succinctly and so deliberately. You can focus the fire, and there's another nearly 5,000 damage. I don't think we find any heat in that game, and that's another thing about these tanks. They don't suffer for pen. You've got nearly 270 millimeters of penetration on your APCR rounds at a very, very nice dispersion with excellent on-the-move damage. Hard to look at any other tank in the game and think, I'd rather drive that. Particularly, I had a recent discussion with SnakeEyes, and we were talking about armor profiles. You have a think about the M103, for instance, and the T54. Which has a better armor profile? Well, I personally think the T54 does. I think it's got a stronger turret. I think it's got a more reliable, bouncy chassis. It's lower to the ground, so it's easier to hide behind things, and it's quicker, and it's got better camo, and it's got just as good a gun once you start firing heat. So you've got to wonder when Wargaming are going to start balancing things back towards the heavy tanks of this world. And I don't think it's just about the statistics of the tanks. I think it is very, very much about the maps and the layouts. And some maps obviously really suit big-ass heavy tanks, and other maps really, really don't. That's just a fact of life. And one of the best parts about heavies is when you get them in a situation where you've got targets in front of you and you can side scrape or go hull down and you can work that magic. It's wonderful. And one of the best parts about mediums is trying to counter that. And that's why it's a world made up of different strokes for different folks, and it's a grand thing. As always, if you'd like to consider sponsoring the channel, click on the link here. The Patreons are fantastic. We do boot camps, we do training rooms, we do private videos for sponsors only on the Bushka on Blitz.com website, which you should all be looking at every once in a while. The shoulder wonking damage competition continues. If you have any damage competition entries, please forward them to bushkawonking@gmail.com and I'll have a squiz at them there. Until next time, boys and girls, stay safe on the battlefield.